Saturday, 9:12 a.m., June 8th. The house had that particular silence old houses get in summer, when the AC clicks in and out like a distracted metronome and dust hangs visible in the light slicing through Venetian blinds. I stood by the kitchen island Ellen had chosen in 2002. Dark walnut, too heavy for the room, she said, and then loved it fiercely for 20 years. Her reading glasses still sat in the ceramic dish with the chipped robin on the rim. It's ridiculous what we keep. I call my son. Dad, I told you, he said, his voice dampened by road noise and Bluetooth. I'm slammed. Back-to-back showings, then a noon inspection in Arvada. It's your mother's birthday, I said. I want to bring peonies. The white ones. She hated the pink. He sighed. The long, theatrical exhale of a man auditioning for the role of the persecuted. I love Mom, but I literally can't today. Uber, maybe? I don't Uber to your mother, I said. It's a cemetery, not a bar. Dad, please. Don't make me the bad guy. The call clicked dead, like it was ashamed of itself. I stood there for a minute, staring at the tile Ellen had insisted on sealing herself, when my good hand, still steady from years of drafting and measurements, reached, almost by reflex, to the top drawer of the sideboard, past the rubber bands and expired AAA cards, under the takeout menus. There they were, 2 keys on a fob, with a crack like a spiderweb through the plastic. He'd forgotten I still had the spare keys. I set a Tupperware of leftover roast chicken into the fridge, reset the thermostat to 75, pocketed the keys, and stepped into the June glare like a man going to confession. I'm 73. I still fold my socks, turn my hangers in one direction, and keep a pencil cup on my desk with 3 sharpened number 2s. I taught drafting for 39 years. Angles, tolerances, the kindness of straight lines. You learn that a millimeter matters, and that people who tell you it's close enough are the ones who will let your roof sag. My son, Nathan, is 41. He sells houses. He says inventory and comps a lot. He learns people's addresses before their names, and I suppose there's a skill to that. In 2010, when the market was crawling back from its crater and Nathan was finishing his MBA at CU Denver, $84, $600 in tuition and fees, 2008 to 2010, paid by Dad. That's me. He called me 11:58 p.m. to say he couldn't sleep thinking of interest rates. It sounded like a compliment. In 2014, I put $120,000 down on his Craftsman on Mead Street because his lender said a parental gift would move things along. In 2019, after Ellen died, he came by with a Costco rotisserie chicken and a clipboard and said, softly, Dad, you shouldn't have to manage boring stuff now. Let me help. We set up online bill pay, a temporary joint account to cover your meds and utilities, he said. We signed a durable power of attorney, just in case, he said, sliding the papers beneath my elbow. He put me on his family phone plan because it was cheaper per line. He suggested I cancel the maintenance plan on the Lexus because I can schedule oil changes myself. It was all very efficient. Little by little, eligible adulthood became optional for him and compulsory for me. Don't misunderstand. I wasn't destitute or demented. I had a pension, modest investments, and the house Ellen and I paid off in 2001 with cafeteria coffee and no vacations. I had grief you could measure in pounds. That was the tender part, the place where people like my son like to press. By last spring, there were new systems. A monthly $3,200 caregiver stipend to Nathan out of our joint account he'd labeled N.Tran needs. A $269 family phone bill with 4 lines. Mine, Nathan's, his wife Alyssa's, and mysteriously watch. A $1,180 insurance premium every 6 months for his car. I'll pay you back, he said, and the months passed quietly, as months will. Then, in May, I found a notice on my kitchen table, tucked under Ellen's glasses. A home equity line of credit draw, $78,900, posted April 29th, secured against my house. We'll renovate the kitchen, he said. It'll raise your resale. It's win-win, Dad. My kitchen is fine. My appetite is smaller than my refrigerator's ambition for me. I set the notice in a drawer and did nothing. Not because I didn't know what to do, because sometimes you want to see if your child will catch himself before the fall. He didn't. Which brings us to Saturday morning and a pair of keys in my pocket. The Lexus RX sat in Nathan's driveway like a smug cat in sun, pearl white. Minute Road dust limbing the wheel wells, and Nate Sell's magnet tucked in the back. I pressed unlock. The car chirped obediently. The smell, leather and Alyssa's coconut hair product, hit me like I'd walked into their bathroom uninvited. The seat whirred its way forward after remembering someone else's spine. I adjusted mirrors, turned the wheel a degree, set the radio to KUNC, then off. On the passenger seat, a manila folder with a Bank of Denver logo. On top, a crumpled toll invoice, 5 violations, E470, April 3rd to 14th, total $38.50. Beneath it, a printout, online transfer confirmation, May 2nd from G&T Joint Household, 1247, to NLL Holdings LLC, 6809. Amount, $62,400. Note, bridge inspection delays. The 3 words that try to alchemize theft into strategy. I put the car in drive. It's 12.8 miles from my house tossed, Bartholomew Cemetery. I took Federal down to 52nd, then east to Pecos, the way Ellen preferred because she liked waving at the bakery lady through the glass on Federal. The mid-morning sun made everything too honest. Compacts nosed into DoubleTree lots, teenagers long-legged across crosswalks, a man with a cardboard sign at 52nd and Federal whose cardboard said veteran. Aghast, God bless anyway. I rolled up the window for the AC, then rolled it back down because the AC smelled like someone else's peppermint gum. At the cemetery, the gravel made that crunch that says you shouldn't be here unless you've left someone you love too much to take away. I parked beneath the ash tree Ellen liked because it rained helicopters in June. Her stone is simple. Ellen Marie Hawthorne, 1949 to 2019. Above the dates is the origami crane Nathan insisted on because he found a crane in my desk the week after she died and said, "This is Mom." He's not always wrong. He just prefers symbolism he can pose for. "Happy birthday, Elle," I said, opening the paper around the peonies. White. We used to buy them at Whole Foods in May, complain about the price, and buy them anyway. "Sir," a voice said behind me. I turned to see Mr. Levinson, the groundskeeper, in his sun hat. "We're on nodding terms. There's a note in the office for you," he said, kind enough, like a man bringing a bill with a hand to cover it. "From Mendez and Sons, the headstone company." In the office, a young woman with a nose ring handed me a folded invoice like a love letter. Unpaid, bronze vase replacement and annual cleaning. $480 due, June 1st. Notes, son requested cancellation May 25th, says not needed. I stood there with the paper like a subpoena. "He doesn't visit," I said. "He doesn't get to decide what his mother needs." The young woman swallowed, foot tapping the desk's invisible rhythm. "We can reinstate, sir. We couldn't do the cleaning without payment." "Of course," I said, pulling my wallet, my hands suddenly old, the tendons standing up like map lines. I paid. Then I added a year in advance. Then a vase with a pattern Ellen would have called fussy, which, if we're honest, she enjoyed on other people's graves. Back at the car, I sat for a minute with my palms on the stitched wheel. The manila folder on the passenger seat had slumped, as if it too had received bad news. The CarPlay screen woke when I plugged in my phone, and his text banners floated up like fish at the surface. "Alyssa, what time is brunch?" "Jake," his assistant, "did you move the helic check?" "Unknown. Need wire by Monday, or we hold the earnest money." It is disorienting, reading a map of your child's conscience in notifications. I did something uncharacteristic then. I took the manila folder and slid it beneath my arm, as if I were in a class and the day would test me. Then I drove to the bank. The Bank of Denver branch on Tennyson hums with forced cheer. A chalkboard by the door listed rates and drew a smiling cartoon house who wanted to be my friend. The manager's nameplate said Linda P. She had hair that was blonde by force of will and the soft authority of a person who keeps a family together through holidays. "Mr. Hawthorne," she said after scanning my ID and our file, her voice dipping into the register bankers use when children have cut their own hair. "We set these joinings up with Nathan, is that right?" "That's right," I said, laying the manila folder on her desk. and opening it like a slow book. The joint account. The Helic. His LLC transfers. This $3,200 monthly stipend to my son for being my son. I placed the online transfer printout in the neat middle. This $62,400 to NLL Holdings. She read without moving her lips, a skill I always admired in teenagers and bankers. We'll need to revoke the POA on file, she said, and remove him from the joint account. Then, do you have another trusted party we should add? Just in case. My wife is dead, I said, looking at the manila folder, as if the paper would answer for that too. I'm sorry, Linda said, and she was. You can tell. We signed revocations. I set up text alerts that would peck at my flip phone like inquisitive birds and finally convinced myself to get a real smartphone just for them. We froze the Helic. We scheduled an appointment with a notary for 3:00 to revoke the durable POA. I called my attorney, Ellen's old attorney, Ms. Ayala, who burrowed into family law like a badger, and left a message using all my words. Then I called my insurer to cancel the auto policy that, I learned, had been covering the Lexus since January, because you said it was easier to bundle, Dad. It would lapse at 5:00 p.m. When I stepped out into the afternoon, Tennyson smelled like coffee and wet dog. I bought a cinnamon roll at Parlor Bake for no reason other than I wanted one. Then I tore it in half and put the other half in a napkin for Ellen, which I suppose is what grief looks like when it's had its coffee. At 1:42, my phone buzzed. Nathan. Where's my car? I typed with me. Cemetery. 3 dots. Then, are you kidding me? I told you I'm slammed. I typed. Not anymore, I imagine. He called then, because text could not hold his outrage. Dad, what the? You can't just take my car. I can if I've been paying the premiums, I said, crossing the street at a light that had no patience. And if I still have the keys. You're going to get me. He lowered his voice, a man switching masks mid-sentence. You can't drive like that, Dad. Like what? Distracted, he said, the word he uses for me when I'm not cooperating. You're 73. I've been 73 for 9 months, I said, surprising both of us. Drive safely to the Bank of Denver branch. Bring your checkbook. What? I'll be in the parking lot, Nathan. 15 minutes. The bank lot was a rectangle of asphalt that could have been any rectangle in America, except for the pot of geraniums by the door and the woman in the red cardigan smoking behind the dumpster. I parked under the only tree, a chewed-up maple, and watched a gull stand on one leg like it was practicing for a test. Nathan pulled in fast, his tachyma slowing a little as he braked like a man with something to prove. He got out, phone in hand, his suit of navy that cost 3 months of my water bills. He saw the Lexus and made a little half-run toward it, catching himself at the last second like he remembered other people were watching. Give me the keys, he said, sticking his palm out like he was feeding a giraffe. In a minute, I said. First we talk. He laughed in disbelief, a sound like a barking seal. Dad, I don't have time. You told me that this morning, I said. You told me you're too busy for your mother's birthday. I am an old man with few speeches left, so I'll spend them carefully and will be efficient. I held up the folder. First, the Helic. You will bring a certified check for $78,900 to Ms. Ayala's office on Monday at 10:00 a.m. Second. You will return every cent of the $3,200 caregiver stipend you set up, $38,400 over 12 months. Third, you will cancel transfers to NLL Holdings and you will remove my name from any document connected with your LLC. Fourth, you will apologize for canceling your mother's vase service, and then you will write a check for the next 2 years. His face did a series of small gymnastics that would have been funny if it wasn't our life. Dad, you're confused. The stipend is legit. I spend hours each week handling your hours. I said, you text a lawn guy and call me confused. That is not caregiving. That is opportunism. He pivoted. Okay, the vase. Jesus. Fine. I'll pay for the vase. And the Helic, I said. The Helic is an investment. I told you. It's theft, I said quietly. From an elderly person. There's a word for that. Several, in the statute. You're being dramatic. Behind us, a tow truck turned in, orange light bars spinning. The driver, thick forearms, wedding band, a day that had already happened to him at least twice, hopped out, and walked toward us. "You the one called?" he asked. "I did," I said. '06 Lexus RX, white, tag ending in 7QJ. Owner wants it transported to Harlan's garage for inspection. I handed him a slip. "Bill goes to Nathan Hawthorne." I looked at my son. "Your name is on the registration." "What are you doing?" Nathan said, voice pitching up. "Dad, are you insane? You're having my car towed." "Inspected," I said, "and detailed. On you. You can't." The tow driver crouched by the front tire like a priest bending to a confession he'd heard 100 times. "Chill, man," he said to Nathan, not unkindly. "He's got the order." Nathan turned to me, voice low, poisonous. "You're making a scene." "Scenes are efficient," I said. "They compress years into minutes." He reached for my arm. The tow driver straightened slowly. "Don't," I said. Nathan's hand hovered in the unforgiving air and then fell. He laughed again, but the laugh had let go of him. "This is insane," he said, to the parking lot, to the Gull, to the Geranium. I set the keys on the Lexus hood. The tow driver picked them up, slid into the car, and aligned it with someone else's care. The cable whined, the car tilted, the day adjusted itself. The tow receipt had a neat box at the bottom. Bill 2. I wrote Nathan's full name, address, and phone number with the slow penmanship of a man who taught children to letter all caps consistently. By evening, the tow truck had his name on the bill. At 6:30, I walked into Nathan's kitchen without knocking. It felt theatrical, but so is gaslighting. It has a flair for curtains and lighting. Alyssa looked up from a salad that involved too much arugula for people who are not cows. Their boy sat at the island, Tyler with a headset on, Dex scrolling a screen with the gentle, compulsive motion of a slot machine addict. "Grandpa," Tyler said, lifting the headset. "Why are you here?" "To eat," I said, and set a bakery pie on the counter. "And to talk." I placed the manila folder in the center like a homely birthday cake. Nathan came in from the garage, face hot from arguing with someone who'd hung up first. "You can't be here," he said. Alyssa's mouth formed a small circle. "Dad," she said, "we're in the middle of dinner." "I won't take long," I said, pulling papers from the folder and laying them in a row. The Helic draw, the transfer to NLL Holdings, the monthly $3,200 siphon, the vase cancellation, the insurance policy showing my payments for their car, a printout of the statute Ms. Ayala had emailed since my call, Colorado Revised Statute Section 18-6.5-103, Crimes Against At-Risk Adults. Alyssa reached for one, then withdrew her hand like the paper might bite. "Nathan," she said, without looking at him. "It's bookkeeping," he said. "He asked me to handle things." "I did," I said, "when your mother died." "Not this." He did the thing he does when cornered, builds a rhetorical house, and dares you to live in it. "Dad, you know how emotional you've been. After Mom, after the fall in February." "I tripped on the hose," I said. "It happens to people who water plants." Dr. Reeves said I should drink more water," I said, "and not let the people I love steal from me." Tyler's eyes ping-ponged between us. Dex pretended not to look and missed his chimera in the game. Alyssa's voice had gone quiet and sharp like a knife, carving a roast you can't afford. "Nate," she said, "is any of this true?" "It's strategy," he said. "Everyone leverages assets." "You canceled his wife's vase," she said, a phrase that would have been comedy if it had not been our life. "You took money, Nathan." "That money is family money," he said, and there it was, the invocation of a god we invented to excuse ourselves. Ms. Ayala's knock at 6:44 was small and precise. I'd asked her to come because I wanted an adult in the room. She stepped in, introduced herself with the calm of a person who has watched enough families argue to know where the exits are. "I'm here to deliver notice," she said, handing Nathan a packet. "Demand for return of property, revocation of authority, and notification of potential civil action." Her voice was a bone you could trust. Also, a friendly reminder about criminal exposure if this is not corrected within 7 days. Alyssa sat down like a woman who had been standing in the weatherman's green screen and just now saw the storm. "Dad," Nathan said, reaching a hand without quite knowing whether it should be defensive or pleading. "Come on, we're family. We're family," I said, "when you behave like family." I reached into the folder and placed one last paper on the island. A list. Here's what I paid for in your life. June 2008, MBA tuition, $12,700 that term. August 2014, down payment, $120,000. March 2019, funeral expenses for your mother, $9,850 because you said you couldn't without putting it on a credit card with points. I tapped the paper. I did those things because I am your father. I do not regret them. I will not fund your appetites under the name of love. The boys were very still. Arugula glistened with oil and did not wilt. I'm giving you 7 days, I said. On day 8 we file. You will not like how competent Ms. Ayala is. He laughed one last time, a sound he'd used since he was 15 and wanted to borrow the Honda. Good luck, Dad, he said. Courts move slow. Not when there's a house with a frozen line of credit and a Lexus that can't be insured. Ms. Ayala said, not looking at him. I left the pie on the counter and the folder with copies they could keep like a bad wedding album. On the porch, I stood where I had stood the night. We brought Tyler home from the hospital, and Nathan had cried because he couldn't get the car seat out and thought that was the end of the world. The world gets larger in its endings. There are consequences when you take from a person who has kept a lifetime of receipts. On Monday at 10:00, Nathan brought a cashier's check to Ms. Ayala's office, eyes narrow with calculation. On Tuesday, he wired back $38,400 and wrote a trembling check to Mendez & Sons for the vase and cleaning. On Wednesday, the bank confirmed the POA revocation and the Helic freeze. On Thursday, Ms. Ayala filed an elder exploitation report anyway, because decency doesn't require us to forget. Alyssa texts me now with information instead of demands. We're reevaluating, she wrote on Friday at 8:13 p.m. I didn't know about the transfers. Maybe she didn't. I don't cast her for his sins. People make their own auditions. The Lexus sits at Harlan's with a new oil filter and a clean interior where, if you're very quiet, you can hear the faint echo of a tow cable and a boy's offended pride. The bill is in Nathan's name and, according to Harlan, paid. I changed my locks. I bought a rightful phone. I learned to use Zelle and not use it for other people. I keep my own calendars again. It's astonishing how watchful time becomes when you stop letting other people spend it for you. I went to the cemetery the next Saturday by bus. It takes longer. You see more. An old man in a Coca-Cola cap told me about his tomatoes. A girl in a red coat sang softly into her sleeve. At St. Bartholomew, the sun was meaner, the ash trees stingier with helicopters. Ellen's vase held white peonies, half open, like they were about to tell a secret and change their minds. A small bronze crane, new, had been fixed at the base. I touched it and didn't care who had paid. Happy late El, I said. The boys are too tall. The arugula is too bitter. Nathan is learning the names of his sins. I sat on the grass and ate the half of the cinnamon roll I'd saved last time, which is not how food works, but grief makes its own chemistry. I told her about the tow truck and the bank and how. Ms. Ayala had smiled at me like a colleague. I told her the house feels less empty now that my authority lives in it again. When I stood to go, I noticed a small envelope tucked into the vase. Inside, 2 keys on a cracked fob. No note, just a quiet acknowledgement that the world had tilted back a degree. I set the keys on Ellen's stone and left them there. If he needs them, he knows where to find them. But first, he'll have to come to the only place where promises still count.